Controversial truths, myths, and theories surrounding the spirit world. Guests include QAnon experts, investigators, debunkers, and skeptics of the supernatural, unexplained, and flat-out unimaginable. Content discussed on this show is not necessarily the opinion of the cast, and topics quite often are for mature audiences only. This show is not intended to replace any medical, financial, or legal advice, and is for entertainment purposes only. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Controversial truths, myths, and theories.
Sort of titles and organizations that she seems to be part of, and then I'm going to read her very short bio here and also bring it on the screen for everyone so that we can share that with you all. So stand by, please. Oh. And Kimberly, just say on the screen at the moment.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to meet all of you, and definitely a pleasure to be here with Kerry today.
Right. So one moment. So basically, we've got her bio on the screen now. So she says that she's at the Global Clearance Level 74, Ground Command, Guardian, founder of United Network News, Global Peace and Restoration Consortium of member states, administrator of Hall of Records, ambassador to the Universal Council, and she is an author of the Restoration Plan approved by Universal Council in September of 2019, and says she's worked with many people and others to restore this planet to its former glory, involved with an implementation of a new ecosystem which encompasses all who live and visit our planet. And this is created out of the need for all organic life on this planet to live in harmony with one another. Very admirable goals, for sure. Versed in Kimberly's various presentations that she has. Now, I often view you via Life Force, and I wanted to, first of all, make sure I understood. You have United Network News. Is Life Force your organization, or is that an organization you work with, or how does that work?
Life Force is new. We've been around for a little over a year now, and it was actually information in order to get humanity moving forward. So essentially what it is, it was formed by us and a team of people. So, I work with Tank and a bunch of other people that you don't see on the videos, but you do see Lisa from time to time. And we're all working together to form the world's first unsecret society. And so this is meant to hopefully unite people. That's all it really is. It's not trying to get people to buy into something or anything like that. It was just life force is what exists in all of us. It's also called the ether. Penny calls it the plasma, right? So it's the common theme, for all our energy. So that's all life force really is. It's meant to change our ecosystem that we exist in.
Okay, great. So just so in case people are wondering about these different sort of titles or whatever. So it's great to have you on the show. What I'd like to do is, I read the bio you gave me, and I think that a lot of that is not going to be very understandable for people necessarily. There are terminologies here that perhaps you could explain. So if you'd like to, up to you how you want to do it, but explain perhaps, what is Global Clearance Level 74, Ground Command, Guardian, founder of United Network News is a bit more explanatory, and these various other sort of listings here. So if you could kind of go down that bio a bit and explain, what these terms mean to you, and we'll start there. Okay.
Okay. Well, we have global clearances and national clearances in every country, right? The US has a scale that goes all the way up to cosmic, right? So you have top secret, which is down here. Then 18 would be like the president of the United States, if we actually had a living one. But he would be down here. 23 would be like your Fed people, Federal Reserve people, those type of people. And then you get into like the Space Force folks. Above that, you have Luna clearance, you have cosmic clearance. So above that, you have a couple of other layers, right? And this would be members of the order of high rank. So what we did is we played a little game, like NATO would be a level 63 or 64. And so I got into kind of a clearance level argument with the order, who kept, if I registered a 71, they would register a 72. And then we took that right away. And then by the time I hit like 74, the reason for this is because it gives you two different things, right? So number one, obviously I have access to the key intelligence and military system that I built. But in addition to that, I have immunity because of that against the order that I'm fighting against, right? So you have to have an officer of higher rank than the person you're going after in order to put out a contract against them or to put them in jail or something like that. So I've had this come up a number of different times, most recently with General John Raymond in the White House, because that's who's running the White House right now. And he tried to have them come pick me up. I've had other people try to come pick me up, and I outranked them. So there's nothing they can do. They can't put that order out without my superior's authorization, and there isn't one.
Okay, so we're talking about a hierarchy, and it obviously, well, at least to me, appears that you're going off planet as well. So when you say you outrank them, can you explain where your rank is and why would they obey that ranking sort of system? Why, who's got the power in that situation?
Okay, so we're talking about a system that everybody is aware of, right? When we're talking about clearances and programs, and now the Space Force is in the front, and then there's still the SSP guys in the back. So you have that whole structure as far as a military and intelligence system, right? And then you also have a secondary structure that always existed above these systems. So people talk about like, oh, the Rothschilds are terrible people. And they talk about, the Bowers, and they talk about the Morgans and the Carlyles and a lot of, and then they talk about secret space programs and DUMBs. But what people, even themselves, the people that are in these programs don't realize is there's a whole nother hierarchy that existed on this planet forever. This is not a new thing. You've talked about it with some of your guests. I know you interviewed Shane the Ruiner. He has a whole blog called The Ruiner something 777, right? And that blog tells you that there's a whole other world going on here that we, as the average everyday people, know nothing about. Well, I got thrown into this thing, and I got to learn all about them and who they were and who, who is who. So when I talk about a clearance level, we're talking about over, I guess you would say, although I don't work with anyone in the space program, I don't work with anyone in the SSP, I don't work with anyone in the order. From time to time, they do contact me, and obviously they're very angry with me for many different reasons, right? Their whole timeline structure is gone. And somehow I'm getting blamed for this, but nonetheless, my clearance is only for that purpose, right? So when you're fighting your enemy, they respect from that level down. I'm not talking about others or anything like that, because nobody cares about that. But in the world, the way it's worked, it's always been a hierarchical system, right? So you have the order at the top, you have the covens above the order, you have, so on and so forth above that, right? Now, below that, you have a bunch of military people and intelligence people that believe in this system because it protects them from each other. So.
Okay, well, maybe we can just kind of cut to the chase a little bit here.
Yep.
Now, who, in your view, is, can we name names? Who's at the very top of this so-called order or list of orders?
If you were to go with the existing structure as it is today, because it's very different than it was years ago, I would tell you, you would be called, there's a guy by the code name Mr. Black. He's an Italian. I have never heard his name, but I can fathom some guesses. And then you have Klaus, who's risen in the ranks due to the recent elimination of 2 different covens. And you have this Richard Weiss guy that keeps popping up all over the place, giving orders that are crazy. So I would say right now, since the changes that took place on the 8th of August, these 3 seem to be the one barking out orders, you know, to the White House, to the Space Force, to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Those are the people I see most often right now.
Okay, so if now at this point you're not going off planet yet.
No.
So, and my understanding is that you actually worked with, correct me if I'm wrong, Marduk, and that you were also trained by the Anunnaki. And this is your claim. Is
Okay,
that correct?
trained is one thing, schooled is another. So they all lie. They're very charming, right? Marduk is very, very charming and cunning and whatnot. His father, Enlil, would speak in riddles all the time. You know, when the tree blows to the left, that is when it is time to go. I'm like, you know, you have to figure out what that means. And it's kind of a game for them. Humans are a game for them. We were always considered slaves. We were a farm, we're cattle. Myself, no different to them. And the one thing that they just wanted to do was be able to control me. That was it. You know, that was their goal. So I learned from them, from talking to them, a lot of things. And by them, so-called, I guess you would say, constantly trying to manipulate me. So I got schooled. Like, it's like, well, you learned a lesson, right? It's not that, well, here, Kim, let us help you. They have had no intention of helping me do anything ever, not even a little bit.
Okay, so I think because my audience is not going to be familiar as I am with your background, maybe we need to even go back further. So let's talk about when you know, your childhood, somehow you got into contact directly with the Anunnaki. And there's not that many humans that are in direct contact. I don't think. I mean, I know there are some. And I myself I believe I've had some contact with them. So how did your contact work out? Can you talk about that?
Well, for most of these folks that are involved in this organization, right, we call the Order, their Bible is Project Looking Glass. So they live by it, they breathe by it. It's how their whole day goes. You've had guests on the show that have said that it didn't stop working in 2012, and they're right. That doesn't mean the lies stopped coming in 2012, but the people that actually had access to it, right, knew the game was over, the jig was up. But they still continue on because there was a 17.8% chance they could revert back to the dark timeline. Okay, so if it was preferable for M and his structure, he spent 1,008 years training and working with the dark, the people he would call the slave masters. And they would even make fun of them. But they were just so programmed and so under control, he felt that, you know, his system would continue if he could convince me that these people were the good guys. You should work with these people. But that's not the way it worked out. So.
Okay, but we're, you know, and I appreciate that. And we can delve into some of that more deeply. But I think, you know, just in terms of my questions, so that people kind of get the understanding of what's your relationship.
Okay.
How, again,
so,
did you get in?
So in Project Looking Glass, right? So I'm sorry, it's a little long explanation. So in Project Looking Glass, they saw me changing the timeline, right? There are others also that they saw. So they were looking for the people with specific DNA. So the CIA back in the 70s devised a program where they were literally combing through trash looking for these people, right? So on a cup or a bottle or whatever it was. So they actually located me in 1983, according to them. Now, first time I ever saw M, right, as he still looked to the day he died, was I was 8 years old. So he was trying to see if he could.
And this is Marduk, I'm assuming you mean by M?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what did he look like?
He looked like an older Asian man.
Okay.
And until 2015, that's who I thought he was.
Okay, so he manifested as an older Asian man, and was he short, tall, just regular?
Average height, for a man. I mean, everybody's taller than me. It's hard to, so I'd say he was probably about 5'10", maybe.
All right, and so did this person appear in your dream space, or did you see him
No,
walk into your house, or how did that work?
Physically in person.
Okay, and how how did that happen? In other words, what was the dynamic? Did he knock on your door? Did he call you? Did he make an arrangement? Did he show up at your house? You were how old when? 8?
At the time, my mother was dating a gentleman with the last name Donovan. As you know, Donovan is a prominent name in the CIA. I knew nothing about this stuff as a kid. So he was kind of like, they were together about 6 years. So by that point, and he took me to a Freemason lodge.
Okay.
And there he was sitting. I remember this.
Right. And what city, state, or whatever, where was
Massachusetts.
This? Okay. All right. Okay. So were your parents what we would call Illuminati, members of a secret society? No, but they did take you to you went to a Freemason lodge.
Well, this gentleman that my mother was dating, probably on purpose.
Oh, okay.
Last name was Donovan.
All right. So you met this Asian gentleman, and how did things proceed from that point?
I was 8 years old. I mean, he, gave me 2 flowers, asked me which one I liked better. It was, kind of trying to get to know me. And I didn't really, I was 8. I had just started getting a lot of these abilities at that time. Okay. So I didn't feel like he was going to harm me in any way. I just thought it was weird that we were the only people in there. Okay. I remember Tom Jones playing on the jukebox. I have an audiographic and a photographic memory. So, I mean, I remember some song by Tom Jones playing in the background, and it was just kind of a little bit weird. Like, why am I sitting here talking to this guy? He tried to say it was his friend and all of these things I was meeting. So I remember that. And then I also remember in 1983, which was, I would have been 11 at the time, I was at the dentist when they came in and swabbed me to verify that I was the one that they found in their DNA program. I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, 1998, they came hunting for me then. I turned 25 years old, which coincides with the story that one of the interviews you did, where he said that they found out in the mid 90s that there was no way to make their timeline work. So they came looking for me around that time again. I was being followed around everywhere in 1998.
Okay, so when you started to be schooled by M, as you call him, was this in 98 or later or before that?
Nope. Never saw him again until 2010.
Okay, that's relatively recent. So is that when the schooling began?
Yep.
Okay, so let's
most specifically May of 2011.
All right, so but they did come find you. Did you have, I mean, you were 25, certainly you were old enough to have some, understanding around you. So, and you say you had special abilities. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about the special abilities and why at 25 you became aware of them. They were tracking you down. What were they tracking you down for? Why did they think you were going to help their timeline or hurt it?
So the ability started about 8. So I always had an intuitive ability. I would see the lights in the darkness. I would see all kinds of things in people and around people that nobody else could see but me. I never told a soul. I had an experience at 14 years old with a guy that started at my work. He looked kind of Egyptian, didn't know who that person was. And, you know, I was babysitting. He came over to the house. You know, I was a young 15, 16-year-old girl. He was cute, you know, I didn't know any better. And, you know, so he jumps on top of me at some point during this movie we're watching, and his eyes glowed green. So, and he said, "Welcome to my world." I had no idea who this person was. Turns out later, I didn't find out until about 2012, 2013, that his nickname was the Dark Prince, and he was one of the parents. No, so I didn't know.
He was one of the whats?
The parents. They're
Parents.
called, they were called the parents. So
Parents
you
of
had,
what?
well, in on Earth, so to speak, right? Marduk was like the manager, the farm manager, because we're a farm. So he was the farm manager. Then you had Enki and Enlil, right? His brother, and right. Okay, so right below them, you would have had this group of humans that they would have called themselves humans of the future. They had superior technology. They lived thousands of years. Those are the parents.
So these are the human hybrids. What some
Humans of
call Nephilim.
what we would have been if we were not interfered with. That's what I like to say.
Okay. All right. So he was one of those?
Yes.
Okay. And so when he jumped on top of you, you know.
I threw him across the room.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, "What is that? Who are you?" He would never answer me. He just sat there and looked at me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so that was your experience at 14.
Around 15, 16. At the age of 25, I was living a normal life. I was working for a bank. You know, I mean, of course, I always had my abilities, my intuition. I just had no idea why all of a sudden, if I went to lunch with a friend, 20 men came rushing in after me. I mean, I didn't think I was that great. I'm like, why is this happening? So you know, and then it ended as quickly as it started. And according to people I met later, they said I wasn't ready yet. But 2 ages that they try to, how do you say it? They believe are milestones in a human's life is 25. They believe you start to think and you know, your abilities get stronger. And then also at 40. So
Okay.
they were really trying to make sure that by the time I hit the age of 40, that I did not perform the function that we're performing right now, doing the things that we're doing right now.
Okay. So you went through your life and did you have, you know, again, you said you got schooled in 2010, I think it is. So did you, you know, I don't know how old you are. So was this, had you reached 40 and
I'll be 49 this month.
So, okay. So was that when you reached 40 that they contacted you and started, as you're calling it, schooled you, or how does that work?
Well, what happened is so I was always in banking. I started 3 different banks, companies. That was what I did for work, right? Not on the high level, didn't know the Morgans or any of those people. I was just doing, you know, what normal people do, right? Entrepreneurs do. And so by 2007, I knew the market was going to have a crash. And I had a business partner at the time. I said, "Look, we need to diversify. You know, this isn't going to work with just products that we have." And, you know, ended up selling the business because he didn't agree with me. And that was kind of the end of that. So by 2008, the market did crash, right? End of 08. So I was like, okay, well, I need to get, you know, my lines of credit. I had an $18 million line of credit. I mean, you know, for a business, for doing bonds and that kind of thing. And I was like, well, you know, I got to go find the money. Where'd the money go? Like, how do we not have money? And so that's what started leading me down the rabbit hole, I guess. I went to London. I was going to other countries. I'm like, well, if there's no money in the US, maybe there's money over here. I started meeting people in hotels and, you know, brokers and that kind of thing. And I was looking to get, you know, I went to a few banks over there looking for a line of credit. And then I I was in London in beginning of '09, and I was in a hotel. I was in I think it was the Park Place Hotel, Sheridan Park Place on Piccadilly. And I was introduced to a guy who's Nathan Rothschild, who said he wanted me to come for the weekend to this country club called Thorn Country Club. And I was like, I don't even know what a Rothschild was. So I was pretty, you know, vanilla American. And I didn't go. I wouldn't go. I said, well, I know you know, I looked in the internet. There's an office on Bond Street, which was right around the corner. I was like, why don't we just go there and have talk? That, you know, he was telling me about funding all my lines of credit and the projects that I had that I was funding because I did commercial lending and that kind of thing. And that was a no for me. You know, I'm not going 2-3 hours outside the city on a train in a place with a person I have no idea who they are. And then I started doing research on the internet, and then I started to learn somewhat of who these people are. And I figured out that the gold was gone. I started talking to Chinese elder people and went down the whole train. That's why I try to educate people on my experiences. So in 2010, I was talking to, unbeknownst to me, a German SS officer and a member of the French royal family of Rothschild, right? So they said that they were going to, I wanted to bring the gold back to the United States. That's the whole reason why I embarked on this trip, because I thought if we could do that, then we could, you know, I wanted to put it in the Treasury, not the Fed. I started to get an understanding of the difference and that kind of thing. So embarked on this journey, went to Switzerland, went to Germany, went back to Switzerland, went to Russia. And that's where I ran into him again the second time, because it was 3 times. And so at the time, they were working very heavily with Putin. And I arrived there, the Fed arrived there, some people from the SSP in Germany arrived there, a guy named Philip Love and General Ritchie arrived there. So many people came, and everybody was expecting me to trigger the system that I really didn't know much about. I knew there was a back ledger. I knew there was an off ledger financial system at the time because of the Chinese elders, right? So we had tons of Chinese people show up. We had the Black Mullah show up from the Middle East.
Okay, so maybe you can explain